Today on the Worldview, nuclear sanctions against Iran. Still, a little bit of climate change. What happened in 2017 in London with two NFL football teams? And what does it mean from a world perspective? And will it be repeated in 2023 when one of those teams will be in London to play NFL football? Those are the types of stories we're going to have today on the Worldview. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Worldview. I'm Chris Greco. For the next 30 minutes, we'll be here talking about the world and talking about things that maybe have been covered kind of in the media, but maybe not, and other things that maybe haven't even been touched in U.S. media, saying. We'll have BBC. We'll have a little bit of Snopes in this one. I want to put some Snopes in this because this is interesting. And we're just going to talk about some history aspects. And I think it's very important to understand the historical aspect of this whole thing when we talk about different aspects of the world and culture and those types of things. So the first thing I want to cover today is going to be in this month, the UK and France and Germany are retaining sanctions on Iran. Now, that was on September 15th. It's kind of funny. They're putting the sanction on Iran to make sure that they don't, to deter Tehran from selling drones and missiles to Russia. Very nice, very good. Except we just gave them $6 billion of their own money, in which time that that we are going to account for and make sure that everything is just so that they don't spend it on anything but humanitarian stuff, because that's very, very important. Not that they don't have $6 billion they can sit there and say, well, we'll sell these drones to Russia. And the thing is that people don't understand. So let me tell you something. You don't do something unless you get something, in this big world of ours. So I'm sure that Tehran is making drones and selling them to Russia, and Russia is paying Tehran for those drones. So we sit back and we say, okay, well, give them the $6 billion. They're going to build a bunch of drones. They're going to sell them to Russia. They're going to get $12 billion in return. They're going to take that, put that in their coffers and do whatever they need to do. In the meantime, they're going to take that $6 billion and they can spend it on humanitarian stuff, which they would have had to spend their $6 billion with that they have in the bank, but they won't have to worry about that because they can use the $6 billion that was just unfrozen for, and I repeat this, and I'll repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. It was for dual citizens, folks. It was not for just Americans. These are, according to the news, this is according to media reports, were American Iranians. You notice how when you do hyphenation stuff, we say things like African American, and the Americans put on the second half. But when French do it, it's not. It's French Iranians. It's French Canadians. It's always put the French first. Have you ever noticed that? France does. I just thought I'd throw that out there. Just something that is just particularly interesting to me. So I throw that out there. Instead of saying Americans of African descent. Now, you can't say these are Americans. You can say these Americans of Iranian descent, the ones that were released, but they're literally dual citizens. So, I mean, so the UK, France, Germany are pinning the sanctions on Tehran. Somehow that's going to make up for the $6 billion that we just released to them. So that should work out very, very well. Iran says their move is illegal and provocative and clearly violated the terms of the nuclear deal. Let's see what happened with that nuclear deal. Let's see, we dumped that, right? And then a new president in 2020 brought it back in because that was so important to make sure that we kept Iran down and made sure that they were not developing nuclear weapons. Very, very, very important. Great. That's just great. Also, under the old president, I hate to mention his name, but under the old president, before this president, didn't we have a drone attack on Soleimani and kill him. And that was an Iranian general who basically was harboring terrorism and all that stuff, promoting terrorism. And but that's beside the point. And then the old president was vilified for that. New president, probably not so much because he did some stuff in Syria, but that's okay. That's perfectly all right. So that's what's going on here at BBC. Thank you very much. So that's that. But what I want to talk about today is the Balmoral Ravens. And everyone's going to sit there and say, it's not called the Balmoral Ravens, it's called the Baltimore Ravens. Well, I think I'm going to call them the Balmoral Ravens. Now, this is a provocative show. This episode is very provocative, and I'm going to hear a lot. If I don't hear anything from Baltimore Ravens fans, I'm going to be very surprised. So I lived in Baltimore for a couple of decades, and the Ravens they were an interesting team. I'm not saying that they weren't bad. They made some bad decisions, but of course, all football teams seem to do that. But the one bad decision they made was in 2017, and this is very, very important. In 2017, what they did was they knelt in London, right? They knelt in London during the national anthem, the U.S. national anthem. So they did that, right? Now, this was kind of like, yeah, it's the way it is. I mean, I never liked it, but it was like, if they want to show themselves to be, if they want to show themselves to be somehow, enamored with being different, fine, I don't care. I'm a veteran. I love my country. I love my flag, and I love the national anthem. I'm going to say it. I love the national anthem. So if people don't like it, that's the freedom that the soldiers, the sailors, the airmen, the Marines, that's what we fought for. That type of freedom. So if they wanted to kneel, that's and they felt somehow that was some kind of message, have at it. But interestingly enough, they knelt in London right during that. But really stupidly, and this is stupid in my point, and I blame the coaches and I blame people that could have advised them otherwise. No, they didn't do that. So they're part of the problem. That you have to have adults in the room, and there were no adults in the room. They stood for the UK national anthem. They stood for it. For the English national anthem, and whatever you want to call it, national anthem, right? And I know that, interestingly enough, that the Ravens stood for that, right? They stood for the United Kingdom national anthem, for the British national anthem, right? And the British flag. And I sit back and I go, I'm sorry, but this is just not smart. Not smart. And the thing is, there's smart people that play football. I mean, Ursler, I think it was Ursler on the Ravens. I mean, the guy, I think he's got his PhD in mathematics from MIT. I mean, the guy's brilliant guy. Of course, he quit football before he lost brain cells, and then he ended up getting into MIT, and he's getting his PhD, or he's already gotten it. I mean, the guy's just very, very smart. Why would you do this? You stood for the UK national anthem, and people sit back and they go, well, yeah, because they were in the host country. I don't care. People sit back and they go, I don't understand, why you're so upset about that. Because we at one time, America was one time, and go back to the 1619 Project, hello, whatever the heck her name is, they ended up going to Howard University and getting a full tenure and all that stuff because she couldn't get one here at UNC. So, she writes the 1619 Project, gets a Pulitzer Prize for it. Is all kind of provocations and everything else, but the bottom line is, first of all, in 1619 we were not a country. I think that's number one. It wasn't America. Fine, that's cool. But then we're a colony of the UK. The UK says you can have slaves. You can have slaves. Yeah, cool, and no problem. Hey, in fact, we'll get them for you. That's not a problem at all. Yeah, I mean, the UK was not just allowing it, they were promoting slavery, promoting it. Do you think it happened in the American colonies just out of like, oh, it just happened? No, it was because the colonies were part of the United Kingdom, England, Britain, whatever you call it, allowed that and promoted slavery. They promoted slavery everywhere. I mean, it was okay. It was cool. Not a problem. And then all of a sudden, 1833 or 1835, they just said, oh, no, it's no more. Well, but in the meantime, they still wanted to make sure that they got their cotton. They wanted to make sure they got their whatever. So they didn't care if the United States had slavery. They didn't care about it. They didn't make a big noise because they wanted the goods. So if slavery was part of the deal, then that's fine. So that's what we're talking about. So all of a sudden, they stand for the UK national anthem. They should have knelt for that national anthem. I mean, we're more free than they were, and during that point in time. But no, it's fine. So they stood for the UK national anthem. Sorry, not smart. In fact, not very smart at all. And I again blame the coaches for not explaining it to the players and not sitting back and saying, look. That's what I mean. You want to kneel for the U.S. anthem? You should kneel for the UK anthem because basically we were a colony of Britain. We were a colony of Britain. We were an English colony. We were a colony. It's hilarious how this all goes. And it's funny because it's not just England and the rest of that, but European in general. So what they did was they came up with this thing called the CARICOM, right? Caribbean Community, CARICOM 10-point plan for reparatory justice, based on the fact that the European governments, owners and traders of enslaved Africans, instructed genocidal actions upon indigenous communities, created the legal, financial, and fiscal policies necessary for the enslavement of Africans. I mean, Europeans did this, and then they spread it to the colonies. And those colonies then took up slavery because hey, that was the way to go. It was allowed. It was promoted. That was the way to go. So all of a sudden, that's it. And a lot of people sit back and they go, "Oh, so Europe was like the origination of all this stuff." Yes, it was. Yes, it was. So and the thing was that England, even during the Civil War, were still trading with the South. So I mean. It wasn't like, and this was, when was Civil War? It was 1860. So, sometime like 30 years after, after the UK said, oh, man, we don't want any more slaves. No, look at what they did in India. Look at what they did in many of their other colonies. I mean, it was horrendous what they did. So I take back and I go back and I go, okay, fine. The Baltimore Ravens, they did whatever they needed to do, whatever else. Hopefully they're smarter and they've been educated a little bit better before they go back to England and make themselves fools again. Because let me tell you something, when you have a football team that sits back and does stuff like this, you really wonder if they're ever going to get to another Super Bowl. So I would say that right now, I don't see the Jaguars going there, and the Ravens, I don't see them going there. Not in the foreseeable future. Not with attitudes like they have or they've had in the past. So it'll be interesting to see how that all works. And my favorite team will probably never get back to the Super Bowl, and that's okay with me. I mean, it's getting to that point where the NFL is becoming way too political for me anyway. So I kind of watch college football. So that's my opinion. All this is my opinion, folks, but I'm presenting you with some factual data here so you can take a look at it. CARICOM, take a look at it. And, the reparations, they want reparations. They want full formal apology, which is fine. I sit back and I go, hey, Chris, you should formally apologize for slavery. I guess what? My ancestors weren't even here. Nope. They were in Italy. I have nothing to do with slavery. Nothing to do with slavery. Zero. That's not, I mean, not my bag. It's you want to get people, get the people that were here for the revolution, whatever else. I mean, but I was, in fact, my grandfather was an indentured servant. So, I mean, it goes all the way back there. So that's where you have that situation where this is what's going on there. So that's it with that. And so now let's go real quick to climate change. And I think this is really interesting stuff. I wanted to, first I want to go to Ukraine. So let's go to Ukraine. So Ukraine now has Abrams tanks, right? So Ukraine has now Abrams tanks. So this is, let's go to Zaporizhia. So there's Kyiv and there's Zaporizhia. So let's figure out what the distance is between these two, because I think this is very important, between these two countries, between these two cities. So you have Kyiv, and then you got Zaporizhia, and this is just straight line. So between these two is about 300 miles. Let's just call it 300 miles, okay? So we're going to call it 300 miles. So 300 miles, And what we're going to do is we're going to sit back and say, okay, what do we have here? Let's see. We're going to have, where is it? Yeah. So it costs $10 million, $10 million for the Abrams tanks, right? 10 million per tank. We're giving them we're giving them 31. So it's $310 million. Boom, right there. So that's what we're going to give them. $310 million. So what is, I was going to say, I had it here. What is the fuel consumption of Abrams tank? So here we have it. 3 gallon, let's see, fuel, however, maneuvering cross country, the consumption rate increases to approximately 3 gallons per mile. But let's just say 2 gallons per mile. 2 gallons per mile. So what did I say here? I said it's going to be about 300 miles. That's 600 gallons just to go from Kyiv to Battle Point, unless they're going to be transported by train or truck or whatever they're going to do, right? So we're talking 600 gallons. So how much is a gallon of gas? So let's say that a gallon of gas is $5 a gallon, which it probably isn't because these things take like jet fuel. But let's say it's 5 gallons, right? So it's $5 a gallon. 600 gallons, that's $3,000 just to get from point A to point B. Just to get from point A to point B is going to cost $3,000 times, and this is important. So I'm gonna just do this on the old calculator because I think this is important to show you numbers here. And unless you show it, it doesn't really make any difference. So let's say that we have 3,000, right? Because I said it'd be $3,000, right? Times 31, right? So it's 93,000. Let's say $100,000 just to get the tanks from point A to point B, right? Maneuvering is three gallons per mile, but let's say it's 2 gallons per mile. 2 gallons per mile, like a pickup truck, whatever you want to call it. So, speaking of that, well, we'll get into that later. So that's basically what's going on there. So there's a lot of fuel that's going out there. And also, this is carbon fuel. This is carbon. This is fossil fuel. Fuel has to be produced, has to be filtrated, has to go through the filtration process or whatever they call it, whatever else is, so that fabricated so that this can be done. So you're fabricating the fuel for all this area. Then you have to make sure that the fuel is transported and the fuel is there at the point where the Abrams tanks are. If you don't have fuel there, so you got to get fuel trucks, you got to fill them full of let's see, so 2 gallons of fuel per mile. So that's 600 gallons times 31. Gosh, I just messed up again. So 600 gallons. So I got to have that many gallons of fuel. So I have, come on. So I have 600 gallons, right? 600 gallons times 31. So I need 19,000 gallons of fuel just to get from point A to point B. That doesn't count maneuvering and all the other things that have to go in battle. I just showed you this right here between Kyiv and Zaporizhia because this is where they're fighting in this area. So I mean, they're fighting right along this area right in here, trying to do a breakout. So they're trying to attack from here, this way, and this way to try to break the Russians. So they're gonna have to get down to Zaporizhia to make that work. So in the meantime, they're going to be all kind of issues having to do with not just them getting down there, but also they're going to have to fight when they're there. So they have to have ammo, they have to, all the different aspects of what's going on there. So I mean, this part data show, part world view, but basically you can see that is going to be a hellacious situation. Now let's say I do a path rather than that. So I'm just going to stick to areas here. Now this can be somewhat mountainous too. So we're going this way, this way, this way. Now we got to cross a river, all right, the Dnipro, right? So it's 240, and then we kind of go over here this way and that way and this way. So now we're up to 300 miles, 307 miles. So it's about like that. That's just to get from that area to this area. And just remember that, you got all kind of interesting situations happening, not just here, but everywhere, right? There's your path. We'll clear that path. So I mean, look at it. Rivers. I mean, separations. I want to see some of the terrain here. Look at some of the terrain they're going to have to go over. And we're talking September. So I don't know whether it's raining or what it's doing there. So they're going to have to go through plowed fields and whatever else. They're going to have to make way here to be able to get down to where they need to go. So there's a lot of things that are happening in this Abrams tank deal that is a lot more than what you think. So I love it. It says how many gallons of fuel does stands tall among his peers. Doesn't say it. Can reach 45 miles per hour on flat terrain. Well, the tanks. It doesn't even say. See, complex design. JP8 jet fuel. I have no idea what JP8 costs. Well, let's find out. What is the cost of JP8 fuel? Let's find out. Cost. What is JP8 fuel? Standard prices. So here's DIA standard prices. Current cost. Let's see. Defense Logistics Agency, JP4, JP5, JP8. $90 per barrel. $90 per barrel. Per barrel, price per gallon. So let's see. Jet A fuel here. So let's see, per gallon. JP8 fuel rate USD $2.14. Not bad. Not bad. That's half of what I was talking about. So the fuel's not going to be that much, but let me tell you, it's going to spew out some real carbon stuff. We're talking basically a jet engine. So it'll be interesting to see how all that works. So that's cheaper than what I thought, but that's basically what you have. So that's what you have. Also, a real quick deal on metric versus it has per liter here. Interestingly enough, a lot of people take a look at liter gas prices and think, oh wow, it's $2 per liter in let's say the UK. Wow, they have cheap gas. No, actually they don't. $2 you have to multiply it times 4. So anything with liters to be a gallon, you have to multiply it basically by 4. You multiply by 4, you get what's going on. You get the price per gallon. So if it's $2 per liter and you think, wow, that's really cheap, multiply that times 4, now it's $8 per gallon. So it's stuff like that people just don't understand, that metric conversion type thing. So I thought that was interesting to throw that out there. There is one thing. So talk about climate change. This is a Carbon Mapper, and I want to just show you Carbon Mapper real quick. What it does is it shows the different carbon aspects of what's going on. And here we have in the United States. Here's 883. Basically, the carbon emissions, what's happening there. You can see it's near basically. I love it because it's like it's gas. It's gas emissions, methane emissions, that type of thing. So that's what's being mapped here. And the United States, of course, a lot. And then you go over here, and you got Iran, you got Turkmenistan, and these are like plumes. When you see gas plumes, that's what you have. So Carbon Mapper, data.carbonmapper.org. Pretty cool, huh? Now, going back real quick to this Baltimore Ravens thing, like I said earlier, it was interesting that they were sitting there saying that, oh, this is just so sad that everything is happening, and it's. But I think what they need to do is figure out like the shoes that they wear. So let's take a look at a shoemaker, right? And this one shoemaker, it talks about like, what do we have here? So this is from Snopes. And it says, Nike workers in Vietnam are 20 cents an hour, work 70 to 8 hours of work, and are 80% female. So a mixture of true and false, according to Snopes. True, Nike workers are 80% female, and some are legally forced to labor more than the statutory working week of 48 hours. Forced to labor, interesting. But that is, then that's Snopes. We talked about this, the claim thing. Okay, we talked about that. We're done with that. We're done with this. Carbon mapper, cost of running an Abrams tank. So this is cost of running about 10 million bucks. Already got that. So we're good there. Hard to maintain. Abrams, I have to go back and forth. So boom, go back to Abrams tanks again. Hard to maintain. Maintaining can pose numerous challenges compared to other tanks. Abrams relies on JP8 jet fuel. It is a jet engine, okay? Not only tends to be more expensive, but also presents unique logistical hurdles for maintenance. This includes getting the fuel there, making sure that it doesn't blow up, making sure that that there's no raids on the fuel trucks, that type of thing. It's scary, right? And it's also scarce. So that is beyond its engine concerns, the advanced technological systems, high-tech components, sophisticated electronics, all these other things that go along with that. So they're going to get 31 tanks, but they're going to have to keep 31 tanks active, which is impossible. There's always, I think a maintenance person once told me, like, there's a 10% downtime. So you're talking about 3 to 4 tanks are going to be out of service at any time, and that's minimum. Probably will be more like 10 tanks. So 1/3 of your force is going to be out at any one particular time. So they're formidable. They do all that stuff, but they are you have to have that maintenance crew with you. So it'll be interesting to see. And again, government contractors are going to make out big on this because they're going to say, "Oh, you got to have us." So they're going to go in there and they're going to charge all kind of money, and that's going to be that. It's going to be something. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to go there. Now, there is one other thing I wanted to show you, and that was the report of corruption. So one last thing, report of corruption. So this is a report that's done by Corrupt Perception Index, transparency.org, Corrupt Perceptions Index. And so this gives by country here. So this is the country. Denmark is great. They're very clean, right? Very clean, 90 to 100. Fantastic. Germany, 79. We're at 69, right? And then we keep on going down here, and you take a look at some of these. Italy, Slovenia, Armenia. I meant to mention about Armenia and Nagorno-Karabakh, and maybe we'll mention that just in a little bit in the end. But I mean, take a look at all these, right? I mean, here is. I mean, I'm looking for Ukraine, and I just don't see it anywhere. Maybe somebody else sees it. I don't see Ukraine in here anywhere. So it's not doing well. I mean, this is what. I mean, Ukraine is not. I don't see. Like I said, I don't see Ukraine in here anywhere. Nowhere. So let's see if we have it anywhere here. So I still don't see it. Ukraine, Bosnia is at 34. Ukraine is 33 out of 90 to 100. 33 out of 100. So we have a big problem. Ukraine and corruption is just not there. I mean, it's just not good at all. And so we need to really account for this stuff and make sure it's in good shape. Last thing I want to hit. So I want to hit this before we get off, and that is Nagorno-Karabakh and Armenia. So basically what's happening is there was a big battle at Nagorno-Karabakh. And Nagorno-Karabakh, sadly, as sad as it is, Nagorno-Karabakh is in a situation where you have Armenia and Azerbaijan. But in the middle of Azerbaijan, there is an area called Nagorno-Karabakh. Now what happened was, when the Soviet Union split up, they split these two areas, and basically what happened is Nagorno-Karabakh is like right in here somewhere. So it's and it's mainly Armenians. So what they've done is the Azerbaijanis went in and really did a battle with Nagorno-Karabakh, threw the Armenians out, and now they're going to Armenia. So they have an influx of all these migrants into Armenia. It's going to lead itself to a lot of issues. And I'm sorry to just hit that right off the bat like that, but that's I wanted to make sure I hit that because that is a growing concern because Armenia cannot bring in those people. So they're having a heck of a time trying to figure that out. It's really sad. So that's what's going on there. Okay. And that about does it for me and the worldview. So I want to say thank you very much for listening and definitely for tuning in. And until next time, always try to have that worldview. Very important. Until next time, see ya.